This is the time of year when stock market predictions abound. How should you think about these beginning of the year predictions? That's what I'm thinking about. Hey, before we jump into stock market predictions for 2025, I want to remind everybody, hit that subscribe button on YouTube here. We're trying to expand the reach of the What I'm Thinking series and have more people find this information. With that, let's get started and talk about it. I came across a couple of really interesting articles here, a lot of conversation, what's going to happen here in 2025, right? Came across one article that pointed out that something I hadn't realized, that we have something unique here the last 3 years in the stock market. It's only happened 3 times in modern history, and that's a negative year in the S&P followed by 2 years of 20+% returns. So kind of interesting, like, okay, what does that mean? Should you be excited about that or scared about that? Well, let's take a look at some of the facts and figures here, right? We take a look back, the first of the 3 times it happened, 1934, down year, 35, 36, markets up. What happens 1937? Down 40%, right? Not so hot. Fast forward a couple decades here, 1953, the market down, 54 and 55, up 20+% a year. What happens in 1956? Just about flat, right? At 3% or so. And then we get back into the 1990s, all right? Have a down year in 94, 95 and 96, both 20+% years. What happens the year after that? Market's up 30%. And so what's to take from that? So we've got one of the following years, it was down 40%. One of the following years, it was up 30%. And the third time it was up flat, right? And as you might suspect, if you've watched this show for some time, the answer is we just don't know what's going to happen, right? It isn't a predictor. It's interesting, historically interesting. We could look back in the 90s there, and we had a nice run, obviously, of 20+% returns, but it doesn't mean anything. It's not a reason to get excited, not a reason to be scared or be fearful about things, right? Interesting curiosity, something to talk about at your next cocktail party, but not something to make a decision about when it comes to your investment philosophy or your plans on anything. And then the other thing that I found that was pretty interesting was a study that went back to 2000 about Wall Street market returns, predictions, that sort of thing. And it was from the New York Times. We'll link to the article here with a gift subscription so you guys can take a look at it too. But what they said was, going back 25 years of data, the consensus Wall Street projection was never negative, and it averaged just under 9% every year. Right? And so you go, okay, what about that? Well, it went on to say that the actual results of the S&P relative to the prediction was off by an average of 14%. So think about that. We're predicting 9% and we're off by 14% one way or another. Just a huge, and here, I'll pull up this quote here. I really love this quote. Being wrong by that much means that these forecasts weren't merely inaccurate, they were completely out of bounds, right? They were off by more than they were on. And you think, these are the smartest, right? The best and the brightest out there in Wall Street. But it's interesting as I think about that thing, right? If you were just to randomly guess, hey, what's going to happen in the market? We know, right? You watch the show, market goes down about once every 5 or 6 years or so, right? We have a decline in the marketplace. 3 out of 4 years, once out of every 4 years, it's a decline, really, right? And here's the data from the article. 7 of the last 25 years, we had a decline, right? A little bit more than 25%, but they never ever predicted stock market decline, right? Is that what their models actually show, or are they touting something to get us to invest or to think differently, right? And so you think these best and the brightest that are doing this, they're off by a gigantic amount and they never predict anything to go down, right? So what's the takeaway from this? It's not interesting. It's fun to watch and see what these folks predict, but it's also just take it for what it is. It's like watching reality TV, right? It's interesting, worth, again, good cocktail conversation, but nothing worth making a change in your investments or your philosophy. So that's what I'm thinking. As always, I'm interested in knowing what you're thinking. What do you think about these market predictions? Are there any of them that hold some water? Maybe I'd be interested in hearing about that, right? Jot a comment in the comment box here. And as always, thanks for watching.